Thanks to Michael Jordan's docu-series The Last Dance, we've not only been able to relive iconic Jordan moments, but we've also been reintroduced to his supporting cast. And Scottie Pippen would go as far as to say that he might have been the second best player in the league behind Jordan. We all know MJ has the most iconic sneaker line ever. But what about Scottie? Well, legend has it that Nike was going to give Pippen the Air Foamposite 1 as his first signature sneaker, but during a meeting between Penny Hardaway and Nike designers, Penny was not impressed with any of their designs. And when he looked into the bag of one of the designers, he noticed the Air Foamposite 1. And well, the rest is history. He basically stole that sneaker from Scottie Pippen. It's kind of messed up, but don't worry. Pippen eventually got his own signature series with the Air Pippen 1 through 5, but despite having his own line of signature sneakers, the most iconic sneaker that Pippen ever wore wasn't an Air Pippen. It was actually these bad boys right here, the Nike Air More Uptempos, and in today's video, we're gonna be going over what made this sneaker a classic. Man, these are one of my favorite sneakers ever, guys. As a kid who grew up in the 90s, this shoe just has so much nostalgia for me. I mean, just look at these things, guys. The Air More Uptempo just has so much personality. And obviously you have that big Air branding, and we're gonna get into the details of this shoe in just a little bit, but I just want to give you guys a little bit of a history behind this shoe. This shoe debuted in the summer of '96. Pippen wore them during the Olympic Games in Atlanta. He rocked the Navy USA colorway, which was a blue upper with white Air lettering. It's pretty awesome, but the most iconic colorway of the Air More Uptempo is hands down the black and white colorway. And I wish I had a pair of the black and white. I mean, that shoe is so iconic. And I've always remembered them from that one scene in George of the Jungle where he like laces up the Air More Uptempo and runs to America or whatever he's doing. But this shoe, like I said, is just way more iconic than a clip in a movie, because Pippen himself is actually on record saying that he thinks these are more iconic than the Air Jordan 11, which is a pretty bold statement because the Air More Uptempo and the Jordan 11 basically came out in the same year. Pippen did wear these during the 72 and 10 Bulls season. Now, just to be clear, Pippen did not say that this was more popular than the Air Jordan 11, because that's just not true. The Air Jordan 11 is one of the most iconic sneakers of all time. But Pippen stood his ground and said that this shoe just stood out more than the Jordan 11 because it was kind of like the graffiti of basketball shoes. And the Air More Uptempos also cashed in on this super 90s trend of having the upper design leak onto the midsole. I mean, the Air goes all the way to the outsole of the shoe, which I think is a pretty classic design. I'm not really too sure if that could fly in the modern era, but this was a huge thing in the 90s. If you think of iconic 90s sneakers like the Reebok Kamikazes and the Shaq Gnosises, all of those sneakers had the upper design leak onto the midsole, and the Air More Uptempo is no different. So I get what Pippen was trying to say. They do stand out, maybe even more so than the Jordan 11s, but that does not mean that these are more iconic than the Jordan 11s, because like there's a lot of shows that's like Jackass stood out more than Mr. Rogers, but Mr. Rogers is the more iconic show. Can we all agree with me on that? I do love Jackass though. Now, this red and white colorway is not an original colorway. This is a retro. This is a new colorway that I think these dropped in 2016. Nike just made these up. This was not an original sneaker that Pippen ever wore. And when I was doing my research for this video, I realized that I think Pippen only rocked the black and white colorway, which that is the most iconic colorway of the Air More Uptempo, and I wish I had that colorway, but the resale on them is a little crazy. It's right around $350. These retail for $160, and originally in 96, they retailed for $150, so the retro price isn't that bad, but the resale is just absolutely killing me. But this shoe, to me, despite it being a classic 90s retro silhouette, I think it still holds up. I mean, when you think about the most popular sneaker out right now, it's probably Nike's Off-White line, right? And those sneakers are known for its gratuitous, I'd say, branding. There's branding all over those sneakers. And the Nike Air More Uptempo's got a ton of branding. I mean, obviously, you have that Air across the upper, but this thing has 3 swooshes, guys. It has one on the toe box, it has one on the heel, and there's also a little tiny one right there on the midsole. So I think when you're translating this sneaker into the modern era, it still holds up because everyone likes a ton of branding now, and they did in the 90s, and this sneaker pretty much checks all those boxes. Now, one thing that hasn't aged well with the Nike Air More Uptempo is the performance. Now, like I just talked about, I think this shoe holds up visually, but if we're talking about lacing these up on the court today, I would highly advise against that because look, the cushioning is there. It's full length Nike Air, but the midsole is pretty stiff and rigid and the upper is very heavy. I mean, it's entirely made up of synthetic leathers, which by the way, the quality on this retro is not awful, but it isn't great either. It's just kind of average at best. One thing that does translate performance-wise is this tongue. It is made up of mesh, so that's gonna allow heat to escape. We all know heat rises, so having the tongue, the top of the sneaker, breathable is good, but besides that, this shoe doesn't have a whole lot of breathability going on. There are tiny, tiny perforations throughout the upper, but the effect is pretty much non-existent there. And the fit of the Air More Uptempo is another thing that doesn't really age well. Now, for most 90s sneakers, I do go down half a size just because 90s sneakers, they didn't use materials that really wrap around your foot nicely as modern sneakers. So I did go down half a size here, and I still felt like when I put my foot in here, I felt like my foot was being like protected, like it was sitting in like a car, like I was a passenger in the shoe, as opposed to like how a modern sneaker makes me feel where it wraps around my foot and it makes me feel like I'm one with the shoe. I do not get that feeling at all with these. So I don't recommend you pick these up to play basketball in. It's a sneaker that you get to kind of add to your collection, to bring back that nostalgia, to wear off of the court. Now, like I said earlier, the last time we saw these retroed was in 2016. So I do think we're due for another retro. I would love to get my hands on a retail pair of the black and white colorway. It would be the perfect time to drop another retro Nike. I mean, the Last Dance documentary, Scottie Pippen, it just makes sense. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we get another retro. I do think it's time to bring these back. I also want Nike to bring back the Air More Uptempo hat. When I was researching for this video, I saw that Eastbay had this Air More Uptempo hat with the Air on the front. It was a dad hat. I definitely think Nike should bring those back. They did bring back that Air logo on some shorts, but they were just kind of stupid. They were really heavy and they cost like $100+. I mean, I don't know what Nike was thinking there. I mean, $100 for a pair of basketball shorts, that's a little ridiculous, but I do think it's time for Nike to redrop these with the hat. I know I'll be copying. Let me know if you would too in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. That helps me out a lot. And subscribe to the channel for more sneaker related content just like this. My name's Darren. It's been great having you. And remember guys, Pippen, it ain't easy. Catch you in the next one. Peace.